In today's video, I'm going to show you guys how to build an awesome $2,000 gaming PC build for 2025 and beyond, featuring some of my favourite PC components that not only offer up great aesthetics, but top tier performance too, in a build that I'm honestly super excited for. I'll be walking you guys through the whole build process to see what goes right and maybe a little bit wrong, talking about all of my part choices, including some alternative recommendations, and looking at those all-important gaming benchmark numbers a little bit later. Let's do this. The NZXT Function Elite and Lift Elite have landed. With NZXT's magnetic switches, with Hall effect sensors for precise control and rapid trigger functionality, the Function Elite is the perfect gaming companion. Paired up with the Lift Elite, a 57-gram ultra lightweight gaming mouse with a 26,000 DPI and up to 70 hours of battery life, you have a setup pairing built to perform. Check them out at the first links in the description below. I'm going to begin today's build by talking about what is always the most controversial part choice. I am of course referring to this, the GPU. Now, for today's build, I've gone for the RTX 5070 Ti. Of course, at this price point, your other options are the AMD RX 9070 XT, or to go for a last-gen used GPU. Now, I really like the 9070 XT and gave it a glowing review, not only when it came out, but in the builds I've made since. The only problem with the 9070 XT is pricing and availability. Things in the US right now are a little more tricky, but I'll leave latest pricing and availability links for Amazon down below, but even there, the 5070 Ti is often available for less than a 9070 XT. And move over to Europe, you've got a choice of 5070 Ti's for in and around Nvidia's suggested retail price. The AMD RX 9070 XT is sadly not in that boat. Both of them are really capable cards. The Nvidia GPU offers up a little more performance for quite a bit more money at its MSRP, gives you better ray tracing, better upscaling in terms of DLSS 4 versus FSR 4, and you do get Nvidia's controversial multi-frame generation if you want to use it. But this card is still great for rasterization. You get GDDR7 memory as well, which is quicker than the GDDR6 you'll find on AMD, and the 16GB of memory in this card is adequate for 1440p and some 4K gaming. I'll be pairing the RTX 5070 Ti up with this, the AMD Ryzen 5 9600X. Now, this is a really good CPU if you want to focus on higher resolutions, 1440p, 4K. If you want to go down to 1080p, where you're more bound by a CPU bottleneck, aka you're more reliant on the CPU than at higher resolutions, you might want to consider upgrading this slightly. 6 cores, 12 threads, and boost clock speeds well in the 5 GHz window makes this chip a really great shout. And as far as price goes, it's really affordable, helping to keep this build within the budget that I've set today. Now, I have gone slightly expensive on the motherboard in today's build, but I wanted to stick with the theme. I wanted to match the GPU as best I could, and that's why I've gone for this, the MSI B850 Edge Ti Wi-Fi. Undoubtedly, this is a build that places equal emphasis on performance and aesthetics. And while the B850 chipset isn't the highest end chipset, while still giving you things like overclocking support and widespread PCI Gen 5, this Edge Ti Wi-Fi board is certainly up there. Now, the good news is it's absolutely stunning, and you can see the full white coverage, the silver heat sinks, little quality of life features like toolless NVMe removal, and a nice little on-off switch that easily releases the GPU slot are all really welcome additions. The rear I/O is really solid too, with high-speed USB-C and A, your slower USB 2s, 5GB Ethernet, and Wi-Fi 7. I also really like to see the inclusion of optical audio. It's not something that everyone will use, but it's really nice to have, and it's one of the first things that cheaper boards tend to exclude. Now, again, sticking with the white theme, but going for components that offer awesome performance and good value for money, I've picked up this, the Corsair Vengeance RGB DDR5. Corsair are one of the oldest names in PC desktop gaming memory. It's literally what built the company, and this kit is no exception. It's got a white heat spreader, nice little diffused RGB section up top, and the key is the 6000 MHz speed with a CAS latency of 30. Another area where I've gone probably a little high end is I've gone for a Gen 5 NVMe, and this is the Samsung 9100 Pro. Now, I've gone specifically for the 2TB model, but again, if you want to keep this build in the budget, I'd recommend dropping down to a drive like the Crucial P310. Now, if you're in the UK, we will be offering this system for sale on GeekaPC, which is our UK pre-building company, and the system is basically identical. The only thing we've done is drop the motherboard down to a cheaper GeekaWhat design and drop the SSD down to Lexar's still pretty fantastic NM790. That's going to give you a little more value for money and again help to keep the build as affordable as possible. Talking of affordable but again great performance, I've gone for this cooler today, the Montech Hyperflow ARGB 360. This Hyperflow 360 is a bit of an enigma. It's a bit of a mystery, and the reason it's a mystery is because it's cheap, it's built well, and it basically tops all of our performance charts when looking at 360mm AIOs. Explain that one. The fans that come included are great, the pump head looks really nice, and all the RGB can be adjusted straight through the 5V motherboard header, allowing for easy syncing of all the lighting in the build today. Power supply wise, again, this is another favorite of mine recently. This is the Corsair RM750E. In a recent build, I went on like a massive rant about power supplies and cables. I won't bore you with it. What I will say is it's ATX 3.1, check. PCI Gen 5.1, check. It's white, and it features white cables, check. What's more, oh, and it's pretty affordable as well. In the UK, this is going to set you back around about £100. Again, similar in the US, but pricing is subject to change. So go ahead and double check, because things right now, especially with the current climate, are moving really rather fast. Now, I think that's pretty much all the parts today. There is one more left to talk about, and that is the case. And in order to discuss the case, I need to clear some room, and I'll be back. Now, this right here is the Montech King 95 Pro, and it's another one of my favorite PC parts. This has been in quite a few of our best cases videos. It reviewed really well over on our website, GeekaWhat.com. I'll link that content down below. And there's a few good reasons for that. Now, the first and most obvious reason is that this thing just looks bloody gorgeous. It's such a nice looking PC case. Now, principally, of course, it's a dual chamber design, so it looks like, well, at the moment, basically every other case on the market. But what makes it different is this nice curved panel at the front. I think that's a really nice addition. All of the panels and the build quality feel exceptional. The tempered glass panel isn't tinted on this white model, which I again really like. Inside the case, you'll find 3 reverse blade 120mm ARGB fans with a nice RGB ring around, a further 2 140mm reverse blade in intake, and a 1 further 120mm fan in exhaust. These are all pre-wired up to the case's built-in RGB controller, and with the press of a few buttons, one of the buttons at the front, you can cycle through all the different effects. Now, I always tend to lay the case down flat to actually go ahead and install the motherboard, but before installing the motherboard, we need to do a little bit of work out of the case and try and install as much onto the motherboard out of box as possible. Now, CPU installation is pretty straightforward. You need to start by lining up the golden triangle on the processor with the golden triangle on the black motherboard socket cover. Once these are aligned, you can then push the arm on the socket down and up. Then you're going to lift the lid and drop the CPU into place. On this particular board, the golden triangle is up here in the top left corner if you look at the board front on. And once that's done, you can return the socket cover, push the arm down, and the black plastic will pop off nice and easily. I'm then going to continue on with the RAM or the memory. I'll be using slots 2 and slots 4 in this build, which confusingly are actually called slots 1 and slots 3 because it starts from 0. Pull back the clips on either side, slide this lovely looking kit of Corsair RAM in, and you're good to go. For the M.2 drive, I'll be using the top Gen 5 slot. MSI call this their Lightning Gen 5 slot. And to do this, you just push the little tab back on the end of the cover, make sure the thermal pad is removed, this one already has been, and then slide the SSD into place. You then push it down, and the little toolless nubbin should actually stop it from going anywhere. Great design from MSI, really nice implementation. And then the cover goes back on. Really, really simple. There is one more thing I like to do at this stage, and that's a bit of CPU cooler prep. Now, a quick check of the manual, and it actually becomes clear that these black included brackets, these come pre-applied on the motherboard as standard, are all that's required for the CPU cooler installation. I took these off for a previous build, as not all coolers actually want you to install them. So all I need to do is add them back on. And if you're buying like an AMD motherboard used, this is a really, really good thing to watch out for, because some people will remove them and then sell the boards without them. Now, they can be bought fairly easily as replacements, but obviously it's much easier if they come pre-installed on the board, and that's what you'll get if you buy a brand new AM5 socket motherboard. Included in the case box, you also get this, which is a nice little pre-organized accessories box, and this will include the motherboard screws that we need for the next step of the build today. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I like to lay the case down flat to install the motherboard. The reason being is that you're then not fighting gravity when it comes to installing the board. There's less chance of the board dropping or falling out, which may have happened once or twice on the channel. That I can neither confirm nor deny. Oh, shit. If you then take a look inside of the case, you should see some standoffs, 3 at the top as standard, 3 along the middle, and 3 down the bottom. Now, a quick check of the motherboard is going to determine whether or not these are in the right places, and I'm not 100% sure they are. The only one to watch out for here is this top one, which is actually indented in a little bit. I think on this board, that's absolutely fine, to be honest, but let's check. Yes, we're all good, but on boards where that isn't the case, you will need to move it. I'm actually going to remove the M.2 heatsink just so I can actually access our center standoff, as that's going to align the whole board into place. Once the board's aligned, screw down all 9 screws, 3 at the top, 3 along the middle, and 3 down the bottom. You want the motherboard to be nice and secure, and return the M.2 heatsink back into its original place. With the case laid down flat, I might actually do the cooler at this stage and while the case is in this position, just to make my life even easier. Now, to do this, you want to pop off the top panel, which is pretty simple. Just make sure you get all the little pop joints out. Now, Montech's Hyperflow handily comes with all of the fans pre-installed out the box, so that saves us a job. I'm going to rest the water block there, line the CPU cooler up with the rails at the top, and just get it installed. You can have up to 12 screws. You don't really need 12, but I wouldn't have 4. I would go somewhere in the middle, split the difference, and just get the thing nice and secure. Once the radiator is in, I'm then going to add the CPU water block on, not forgetting, of course, to add some thermal paste to the CPU. This is a step you'll need to do if your cooler doesn't have any pre-applied thermal paste. With everything in and looking pretty good, I think the colour scheme so far is absolutely top notch. I'm going to move on to the power supply. And obviously I talked about this power supply earlier and why I like it. The white cables look super good. The form factor is fairly compact. And I think that it's a pretty typical representation of where Corsair are as a brand at the moment. They had a bit of a rocky patch. They had a few products that got a bit of stick. And I think they've corrected course. And they've got some really good stuff. I actually genuinely really liked some of the stuff they were showing off at Computex, including their new triple chamber case. So quite excited to take a look at that. I'm going to go ahead and slide the fan with the ventilation obviously pulling air in through the rear of the case in this orientation and screw it down with 4 screws at the rear. I'm then going to proceed by wiring everything up, including the CPU, the motherboard, the SATA power connections, and then any fan cables to the built-in fan hub for the CPU cooler and any other fans within the build today. The final step after that is then, of course, the graphics card. Now, I'm excited to see how this thing looks in the build. It should match perfectly with the rest of the parts today, but we shall find out. I'm then going to hover the GPU into the case over the motherboard, and that reveals that it's the 2nd and 3rd PCI lanes that indeed need removing. So I'm going to go ahead and do the top one, followed by the one just below it. Make sure the PCI slot is released so it looks to me like it is, and then slide the graphics card into place. Bit of a snug fit in this build, but that's seated correctly. I've locked it in using the little tools button on the MSI motherboard, and then I'm going to secure the GPU. Plug the power cable in, a little something like so. That is colour matched perfectly, and we have ourselves one amazing looking gaming PC. There's a little bit of cable management left I'm going to deal with. I'm going to put the panels back on, and then I'm going to rejoin you for some benchmarks. But first, all of you guys know what's going on at this point. Let's roll that montage. So this system looks amazing in Montech's gorgeous white King 95 Pro, but what about performance? On your screen now, you can see a lowdown of all the results we gathered, primarily at 1440p high settings. Taking a closer look into one or two of these titles shows you just what amazing frame rates are on offer. Call of Duty's Black Ops 6 at 1440p high rasterization yielded 165 FPS on average. Cyberpunk 2077 at 1440p high raster pulled in just shy of 150 FPS all told. Really love the look of Cyberpunk even all these years after its release. While finally Doom the Dark Ages at 1440p high settings still maintained a triple-digit frame rate, 106 FPS on average, with everything cranked up to high at 1440p. Now, none of these numbers account for the fact you've got DLSS and even MFG to leverage should you so decide to use it, and of course Nvidia's ray tracing, which is better than what you'll find from the Team Red alternatives. What do you guys think of this build? Let me know in the comments down below. Get subscribed to see more from me. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.